Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me on another episode of Maps Are Dead with Mike D. I'm super excited. Paul Seibert's with me today. Paul is a aerial photographer. But here's the thing, Paul, you're not just an aerial photographer, right? You're like a door off the helicopter aerial photographer. Is that right?
That's true. That is true. Yep.
I'm like, I get to talk to some really fascinating people here. So, Paul, on today's episode, we're going to talk through, again, navigating life when it's kind of run off the map. For those of you following along, Clifton Strengths at Home, strategic, ideation, learner, achiever, futuristic, even managed to, I'm home now. I got to write them on the board for me. But
Nice.
Paul, you're a native of New York, but now you're in Colorado. Is that right? You're not in New York anymore.
No, we moved out to Colorado. Just we had our little 4-year anniversary just a couple weeks ago. So yeah, still fresh out here.
It's a great place to be from, though. It's a great place.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful area. I love it out there. You're not near
it really
Boulder,
is.
right? Out that way.
Yep. Yeah, a little town called Longmont. Yeah, so
Yeah,
we like
it's
it.
I talk to a lot of photographers, and I work with, of course, everybody thinks they're a photographer with an iPhone today, right? But you specialize specifically in like high platforms, specifically off the door helicopter photography. In fact, New York from the Air, I think, was a book that you're kind of known for. You've had some success with that and a number of other things, but specifically New York from the Air is a book that you did a number of years ago. When did that come out?
That came out in 2022,
Okay.
April of 2022, and I am now working on my next book, which will be
Okay.
all black and white photography.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Paul, this conversation, I want to navigate a couple. I want us to kind of dive in a couple of different pieces. But like, one, how did you get into photography? Is that something you knew starting out? When did you get into it? Where does the love of? Because again, of everything you're shooting these. So far, your other book has been like large landscapes and cityscapes and these big pictures. How did you get into photography? How did you start?
Yeah, so well, how much time do you have? No.
No, tell me. But like, was this something you always wanted to do, or you're like, actually, no, I didn't. This isn't how I got here. Because I mean, navigating that first big decision is kind of cool.
Right, yeah. Well, okay, so I was in high school. I took a film photography class, black and white film photography class. Really loved it. However, at the time, I was studying music. That's what my degree is in. I'm a jazz saxophone player. And my dad was an educator, and at that time, it was do one thing and get good at it.
Right.
And so we had already kind of committed to that. I was on my road for music, but I guess we're talking about 16, 17 years ago now. My wife and I took a trip to Santa Fe, and I had my brand new high technology 8 megapixel camera with me at the
Eight
time.
megapixel is a big
Yeah,
deal.
I was living large. And I I just started taking pictures of this landscape, the architecture there. It's completely different. I mean, being from the East Coast, New York City, I don't see much Adobe style houses and this kind of high desert, mountainous, kind of the things that we saw, growing up watching Western movies with my dad.
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, this
Yeah.
place is amazing. And I just started taking pictures on that trip and realized, oh my gosh, like I forgot how much I love taking pictures. And then slowly but surely, like that camera just came with me everywhere until I started taking enough pictures and sharing. It was before Instagram, so it was mostly sharing on the Facebook.
The
And
Facebook was that the main platform you weren't on? Was it Flickr? Flickr was a thing that happened for a
I
while,
didn't
I think.
really.
And then,
I felt more like imposter-ish going on Flickr when I just had a little point and shoot, and I don't even know that technologically I was up to speed with how do I get these digital
right.
images onto another platform. But I was sharing that and, getting encouragement and feedback. And so I brought my images to the only photographer I knew, who was our wedding photographer. And to say that she was a wedding photographer is underselling her. She was an incredible editorial photographer and had a lot of insight and professional understanding. And so I just said, hey, what do you think of these? Is there something that am I doing anything right here? And she started kind of giving me some technical advice, and I pulled out my little point and shoot, and I was like, well, I'm just taking pictures on these. She's like, well, go out and get like a a camera, DSLR, and that's what I did. And then I read maybe like one book just to refamiliarize myself with the foundational aspects of photography, and then I
Yeah.
just started practically applying that and shooting as much as I could.
And when this is all happening, are you working as a musician? Like what's the economic engine in your life at this point? Because this is something that's catching your interest, and you're starting to slowly invest in that, right? It's
Yeah,
something
yeah,
that you had a raw talent in that you're now putting. We always say take your talents and take knowledge, skill, and experience, and start to
hmm
see if it can be shaped into a strength. In that
yeah.
moment, are you working? Are you working as a musician? What are you doing at the time?
No, I am at the time I'm working as a landscaper on a
Hmm.
private estate just outside of New
Okay.
York City. Um, and I am teaching saxophone lessons, moonlighting, and then, writing and producing music on my own time,
Okay.
with a group of guys that I've been doing that with for a while. So nothing like in the professional realm of music.
But
Just
you're making it work. You're doing you're doing all the things it takes when you're in the industry. You're working in the industry, but you're kind of filling in with anything you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I, at a certain point you have to make a living, right?
sure.
And
Yeah,
I felt like as a younger man, I kind of squandered some opportunities, wasn't ready for the the talent that I had that I have since applied into photography that I had
yeah,
for music. I
yeah.
didn't put the time in for that. Um,
Mhm.
and I felt as though I was definitely on like this kind of repentance tour of just doing like manual labor. And I
You're like,
couldn't
fine.
I
You
couldn't
don't want to run with the other thing. You're gonna go
yeah.
and mow lawns and
Yeah.
do edging.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to get underneath fluorescent lights.
Mhm.
That was one of those
Yeah,
things, and I said, "Look,
right.
I have a good head on my shoulders. I'm a leader. Um, I can come onto a crew and assume a
Yeah,
certain level of responsibility very quickly.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I also felt like if I was going to do something, I was okay with doing hard work.
Before you started taking photos,
Mhm.
could you see things in photos? Were there things that you were able to see before you could take?
That's a really interesting question. Yeah, I think that I did. I think that there was a time. Uh, I appreciate that 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 medium, right?
Hmm.
So growing up, I was, obviously who wasn't, but I was a fan of Ansel Adams. His images, kind of just his black and
Yeah,
white images,
yeah.
just like pulled you into them. And then even as a kid, um, when I was in high school, used to get these, and I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but uh, got these things called they were like the day planners, but it was from the Sierra Club, and like
Yes.
it was like a weekly planner, and every week there was like this amazing picture from somewhere in the United States, and like I was always enamored by that, and the ones that I loved, I would rip out and pin them up on my wall. I don't know that if I could identify the fact that like I could see things in a different way. I think that took time and intention,
Hmm.
um, to be able to have that underlying, um, kind of, I guess, innate quality that you start to identify what a picture is. You're starting to look at the quality of light. You're starting to look at framing. You're starting to look at, or at least to be able to identify what it is
Yeah.
that's making me want to take a picture right now.
The source of for me, part of the question is because one of the Clifton Strengths themes you have is futuristic, and futuristic can be about vision and future and all those other things. But one of the things we've also found is that futuristic sees potential. They see possibility, or they will notice when a thing could be better or more. So maybe to even maybe reframe my question again, when you saw pictures, can you spot when a picture could be great if it was composed differently, if it was reframed differently? And so that may actually be a thing you see even
Mm,
more so than a great photo, was that hearing the potential. Because wondering if that futuristic filter that goes, this would be amazing if cropped to the thirds. if the
Mm-hmm.
grid was realigned or assessed? Do you intuitively know? Because I'll be interested to know when you think about what came natural in the early days, was it composure? Even more so than knowing how to run a camera, right? You're going to your friend for specifics of the fundamentals of photography, but the
Mm-hmm.
ability to see and go, this shot framed like this puts the Mesa Mound here, which is the rule of thirds, which is the eye line of X. Like, were there things that intuitively you could see when you were shooting?
Yeah, I think there was. I think that um all right, two parts on that. I would say that my futuristic aspect of being able to
Yeah.
see trends or being able to spot something that isn't necessarily like I see the gaps, right?
Mm,
And for me that manifests as why.
mm.
But why? Right? As someone who's looking to the future, or just has that okay, if we keep on doing it this way, eventually it'll be less effective if we do
Yeah.
only that all the time. Um, I think the strategic part of my
Yeah.
brain when I'm thinking about a shot, when I'm visualizing something, I'm very like shot A, and I have
Yeah.
to go and get shot A. And then if shot A is not meeting my expectations or my hopes or my level of planning, then I allow myself to like take a step back and um and then look for another frame, and that's when I find that like I'm like, "Oh, this is what I'm here for. I'm not
So
here for the shot
you
that
have a very
everybody else got."
specific plan. You have a very specific start that you're like,
Mhm.
let me try to achieve the vision in my head, and then I will allow for variation after I've achieved the first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that is going to be, that's a little bit of the achiever strategic of going, okay, let me cross this one off, but then strategic ideation, they're paired together. They say,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, that's the route, but if I altered the route, what would I get? Well, if I
Right.
tried it from a different angle, from a different height. And so some of that different conversation. Because I was just wondering about what it is you see in your eyes. So you're learning, you're landscaping, teaching, you're hustling and like performing music in these pieces. Part of this conversation, right? And even these interviews that I do in these podcasts is about people who navigated. And what you're describing is that piece. Obviously, as we age, it changes. There's different, we're living cheaper when we're younger and we can hustle
Yeah.
3 or 4 jobs.
Yep.
But the gravity of something that is based in your talent that you're starting to get interested in, how does that begin to take up more of your life to the point where you are now? I mean, today as we talk, you're Paul the photographer versus I'm Paul who's artistic and working multiple jobs, who's kind of navigating into photography. How does that evolve? At what point do you become I'm Paul the photographer?
Mm. Yeah, I think okay. That's a really great question. I don't know that I've been asked that question before. I think I think how it starts is just the sheer it's the decision to bring the camera with me. It's the willingness to be open to see something and try and capture it. What and oddly enough, I'll fast forward to this winter. I was feeling a little bit stuck in my rut, like creatively, and I went back to I'm going to make myself take one picture, create something once a day, and how that expanded like my ability to creatively problem solve. So I think how it took root was there was a commitment to like, all right, I'm going to strap this thing to my belt and I'm going to get out there and I'm going to go for a hike in the woods and I'm going to try and find something. Because, if I had my druthers, I always said that if I didn't live 15 minutes from the most photographed city in the world for so long, I would try to be a landscape photographer. I just love being outdoors. I love being in nature. But that wasn't the case. So I had to find the things where nature and these man-made constructs here that we have that are iconic in nature were coming together and meeting sunrises, sunsets, weather,
Yeah.
um, all those things. All of this happened just because I just said, you enjoy this. Like, let's go out and see what you can do today. What can you find today? Like,
Did it feel strange
allowing
taking your
yourself.
feel strange taking your camera with you? Because I think because you hit on something important, right? The first choice of I'm gonna take my camera with me everywhere, and actually something you said, I want to call this out because it was so good. When you said like, hey, even in this recent, to jump forward and backwards a little bit, you said in this season of things of a slow spot for you, you broke it into I will create something every single day, which by the way is the achiever hook. And for those
Yep.
people who are watching who have achiever, when the result becomes too complex, break it into a small thing and practice the smallest bite. That's
Yep.
like a big thing. It's like find
Yeah.
that small piece. The fact that you did that. But when you're like, because in my mind, I'm going to make up stories of people. I know people who like to take pictures and things like that, let's say, but to suddenly choose, I'm going to take a camera with me everywhere. I'm going to do that. Have you always been the self-confidence of like, this is what I do? Did people ask you? Were there interesting assumptions? Why are you always taking photos, Paul? The comments. Are you self-contained enough because of the achiever part of your brain that you're like, I know who I am? Or were people like, oh, there's Paul, always taking photos? You know, I know people who take photos, but they don't evolve into becoming a professional photographer. That first
Yeah.
step, did it require confidence? Did you have to overcome anything to let this thing become part of you? Or was it there was so much joy in it that it carried you?
Yeah, I think the wonder of it was the first and foremost, like a sustaining aspect of the beginning part, right? Uh, and when I say wonder, just kind of like that surprise and kind of sometimes it's just amusing, like, oh, look what I found today.
Yeah.
Even like doing this thing for the first 3 months of this year, I would go out where like, okay, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna capture this today. And
Yeah.
when it didn't happen, I would just allow myself to like find something else. Something else is going to present itself to me. Um, so I think in the beginning it was definitely I didn't necessarily I wasn't insecure about it, but I definitely didn't um like advertise it. Was at the time it was like, it's just a tiny little camera, so it was
Yeah.
like I could just tuck it in and be kind of incognito. And
Yeah.
but as I started to grow, what happened then was um I started to find that that's when Instagram came into play, right? And then I started to build community with other like-minded people. Oh, this guy takes pictures like I take pictures. Like, hey, like, would you ever want to go
Yeah.
and take pictures together? Like, go out and shoot together. Sure. And I started to build a community um, around photography. And
Yeah.
what that did was completely expand my perspective. So then it became like the learner aspect of me was I was like, I went from like the joy and wonder of just being outside to like, and if that's
Yeah.
like the milk part, like the meat was like looking at what other people came away with and me being like, I just took 30 pictures of the same thing over those 2 hours. I didn't move, because my mind was so like, this is my
Yeah.
shot that I have to get. As opposed to being like, I got my shot. Cool. Now, you know, grab your camera and move around and see what else presents itself to you. That
Yeah.
was a learned trait that I had to get beyond my natural kind of thing. So yeah, it was I'm always going to credit community for the growth.
That's key. That's
That
great.
learning curve was decreased exponentially just because of the amount of time that I spent running around New York with strangers, basically strangers that became friends,
Yeah.
and the opportunities that came from just being a genuine human being who's
Yeah.
interested in the same thing, and trying to be decent around
Right.
along the way as
But I
well.
love but I love what you're saying is that part of so what allows some of this natural talent is you obviously start applying knowledge and skill. But I'm a big believer in the relationships around us end up whether or not they allow things to flourish and grow. You can invest
Mhm.
in it, you can learn and do it, but then bringing that in where you're not alone in wanting to be great at a thing, you're not alone in learning, you're not alone in the experience. I think belonging can be a real driver in some ways to really multiply people's growth. I think growing in community is obviously has some of the greatest impact in some ways.
Oh yeah, for sure, for
Do you
sure.
remember
It's
the
it.
moment, Paul, when you were when you became a photographer in your own mind, where you're like, wow. I remember somebody asked me the other day, when's the day you felt like, man, I'm good at this? And for me, it was my brain. I did a workshop for the Gates Foundation. They were pretty a new thing, and everybody knew what the Gates Foundation was. And they called me to do a workshop, and I was like, oh, wow, I'm a real coach now. And something in my head changed.
Yeah.
I've been a coach for 5 years at that point, but there's a moment when I realized in my head, I was like, oh, I'm a coach or I'm a consultant. When do you get to that place where something that started as just a love, you're like, oh, it's part of my identity in that I don't mind showing up in the world, and I'm proud to show up in the world as this is something I get to do. Obviously, you're more than a photographer, right? You're a man, you're a husband. You have this whole part of you that's not that. But I believe in this, in a lot of the research Gallup talks about, people struggle in jobs today because I'm Gen X, I'm 50. Baby boomers and Gen X, I'm hunting for purpose, but a lot of us were just hunting for vehicles to get to our life. We had community outside of our jobs. But today, all the research that Gallup does shows that people don't want jobs, they want purpose. And they don't have jobs, they have identity. And they feel so connected to it and tied to it. Without making judgment on that, they realize how much their life is in effort. So for you, I mean, you're Paul, but you're also Paul the photographer. When did that become real, where you're like, this is something I can do for a living. This is something I want to give to the world. I'm proud to have this be something I'm known for.
Wow. I think that there was a time when the idea that was starting to take root. Can I do this? Is this something that I can do? While I was working on this estate, I think it came to a head in a time when I realized that I was willing to make less money by being like, I don't want to be here at at work today. I want to be out shooting. It came to a tipping point, and then like there's an element of spirituality and thoughtful, prayerful contemplation that I was waiting to hear that it was time to go, and when it was, I pulled the trigger. I would say that was right around the new year, 2013. Winters at working on the estate were just not the most fun. It was cold. I was usually, and like I was usually 100 feet up on a cherry picker with a chainsaw cleaning up dead stuff out of trees. I was lucky enough to have a job where we talked about me taking the winter off and seeing if I could build this business a little bit. And then when I realized, like, oh, like taking pictures is one thing, but being a photographer is something else, right? There's business, and your boy didn't understand business. It took a long time. It took a long time, and many, many mistakes. I still make mistakes. But it was one of those. It was in a really like sweet spot where the spring came around and it wasn't going yet, right? So I went back in like more of a part-time thing at the position at the estate, and then gave me that time to grow the business and grow my understanding and where do I want to be, how do I do this, how do I get a client base, how do I do all these things, and how do I...
It takes time to navigate that. It takes time to figure those pieces out, right? It's the other parts of how you make it work. When I listen to you talk, the one thing I wonder is, because what's interesting is you have strategic ideation, which is very responsive. So in Clifton Strength, strategic is assessing roadblocks. So it's like knowing which lane of traffic goes faster. But you're also futuristic, which is a vision of, 20 years from now, I'd like to be out here, or I'd like to be doing it. And so your brain, when it comes to navigating the world, is really responsive to the problems in front of you. Hey, I'm going to kind of wait for certain gates and certain things to occur. But it also can be kind of like out there. You know what? I know I'm charting a much larger course on both. So it's happening both there. And you're married at this time, right? Remind
Yep.
me your wife's name. Your
Leani.
Leani. You and Leani
Yep.
are talking. Are you? Is there come up and were you just starting to have conversation where you're thinking? The good news was, at the very least, I always say you have an anti-vision. You're like, okay, I know my future is not going to be climbing trees in the middle of winter 10 years from now. So,
Yep.
so I have a vision of it not being like there. But at the same time, it's starting to be, but then how will I navigate to not be there? Or how will I navigate the challenges of, okay, I'm learning photography. Now I'm learning client acquisition. Now I'm learning the small pieces of business. Is there a pattern? Do you default by setting a big vision and then you navigate it? Or do you find that when it comes to you navigating your future, do you discover the path while you're walking?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think in the initial part, it was definitely I was discovering while I'm walking, right? Things Jobs came to me because people knew that I was taking pictures, and it was,
Okay.
friends
Yeah.
and family and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
maybe my first wedding was, I think my first wedding I shot was my sister-in-law. Um, and my payment was like another lens that I wanted to get, right? It wasn't making
Buying gear.
like, yeah. And so, but I think, now as I've understood a little bit more about my style of photography, or my vision, or how I want to work.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way, because there are incredible wedding photographers out there who work, you know, 45 weekends a year
Yep.
and making a great living and have a system. I'm not necessarily a system guy, right? You get to that much volume where like you can be like, oh, good, cool. I can take 2 months off, and you take 2 months off in like March and January, but like those aren't the greatest months to take off. Let's be honest.
The non-wedding months aren't really vacation months.
Right. Unless you're going somewhere else, right? So you better be charging a lot. But I think that, for me, I understood that for me mentally, and then also physically, because shooting a wedding, a 10-hour wedding, it's demanding. It like
It's a
wrecks your
lot.
body. So I knew physically it wasn't sustainable. Um, so I said, how do I find jobs that will pay me in larger lumps, uh, to show up and seemingly work less, right? I don't know if that I'm necessarily working less, because I had to put a lot of time and effort into, still had to put in my 10,000 hours
But less
somewhere,
of the
right?
work you don't enjoy. Less of the work that's
Exactly.
exhausting. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that kind of, there is this like duplicitous nature in this evolution where like I started out as something, um, but I was also willing to, or after gaining some understanding
Yeah.
of what it is. Because if you don't know, if you don't have, I need firsthand information. Like
Okay.
if somebody's giving me secondhand information, I'll be like, okay, cool. Like I'll consider that until I
Right.
respectfully, I'll take a minute,
Yeah.
and before I form an opinion, I want to have that firsthand experience. So I think I needed that, in order to
Yeah.
understand exactly what it was that I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, and yeah. So
And I think
now I would
that
say I'm
environment of
more.
being able to that thing of being able to navigate that way. I think when I talk to people, many times people think there's a certain way it should be done when it comes to making
Mm,
decisions about their future. Set a plan, research it, lay out the steps, follow the steps. But there's a large collection of folks that I meet with strategic or activator, ideation in there, and achiever, that they will discover the path while they're on it. But so the key ends up being to navigate with strategic activator or achiever is there must be action because the truth will reveal itself while you're moving. The one thing
yeah.
that can never be answered, if you have those themes, is what to do if you're not moving. And so I think a lot of
Yeah.
people, the challenge they face isn't the love or desire for a certain direction or to go to be a photographer or even if you stayed in music or whatever it be. It's the worst thing you can do is to not do something. It's
Yes.
about waiting till it's perfect, waiting till the
Yeah.
perfect. It's like, no, actually, let me keep discovering what I want or don't want, but I can't know unless I step into it.
Yeah. Like, so I'll give you, for instance, like my business partner right now is an incredibly talented cinematographer. If he took this test, he would be like all strategic. Like he would come back 5 strategics, right? To the point where I'm like, bro, we can't know where the 1,000th domino is, how that's going to fall before we take the first step. And that's like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had to learn that because I would sometimes be frozen with the what ifs, because the strategic aspect of how do I can't see around this corner here,
Yeah.
but I know there's a corner. So why don't I just do as much as I can until I get to the corner? And maybe it won't be like a hairpin. It'll be just
Yeah.
like kind of like a gradual, like, oh, this wasn't so bad.
And again,
So
back to even your, like, take a photo for your first 3 months of the year, take a photo every day. It's and again, I talk about a strengths-based approach to anything is figure out what works so you can fix it when it's broken. And so knowing that there's certain defaults where they can achieve a strategic ideation is that action is key, small action that's measurable is the way to answer almost any question that feels like an overwhelming question.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
going back to the small pieces again of I'm going to get a
Yeah.
photo off every day. I'm going to, well, what do I know? Okay, great. If your partner's going, let's think about this, and this. Terrific. And where's the part where we're going to leave it to be experimental? We say,
Right.
we talk a lot about heat. We say,
Yep.
set a vision, interrogate reality, create a gap with a vision, but then close it. And my buddy Johan loves to say, with habits, experiments, attitude, and time. And we say habits are the routines. Experiments are things you do just purely for the information.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
doesn't need to work. It needs to
Right.
inform.
What happens when I do this? Right. Yeah. And
And
like,
that
it's
ability to step
interesting.
into that.
I wanted to go back to that. I'm glad that you brought that back up, because that breaking things down to little bits it's literally how I approach big problems. I talk about I am a lowest common denominator person. I talk about this all the time, and I realized that when I had those moments in my developmental stages of photography, when I was out and I would see something. What is that? What is that there? Like, and I would take a picture and I'd be like, it's just, like the typical, like the picture just doesn't do it justice type of situation. And so then there was one day where I'd kick myself in the butt and say like, no. Look, like if this is something that you're interested in, this is what you want to do. Like you have to make sure that the picture does it justice. So I literally trained myself to do the thing, right? This thing right here, and identify exactly what it was that I wanted to take a picture of, right? So there it is. There it is in my frame. And then I'm adding a little bit more subjectivity so that somebody else can also understand what I'm looking at. But when I would go out this far and I would lose the effectiveness of that key element, I would bring it back in and then find that sweet spot. And that's how, when I'm having trouble, I still go back to that sometimes where I'm like, what is it? What am I doing?
So
what am I missing?
So the absence of a frame in some ways
Mm-hmm.
really creates an absence of clarity.
Yeah. If with hand in hand with the absence of a frame, there is a lack of understanding of what it is that's driving you, motivating you to take a picture or driving you to do something. It can be applied in so many different aspects that I think it should be a malleable confine that you're operating in to be able to find the meaning, right?
Yeah.
Not just a job.
Yeah, and I think that's a key piece, right? Because I think for people who really want to, I think that creative part of your brain, that learner ideation, strategic part will go, hey, I'm open for anything. But the achiever part will say there must be a result. So it's not just enough to think about it. At the end of the day, I'm still got to deliver. I still operate in reality. I still have bills to pay. And so as you're making that move and navigating, I can see how let me figure this out and at least try it. And so it's fun to hear how your instincts kind of moved that. You step into photography slowly in business. My thing is, But you didn't just become a photographer. You became a door off the helicopter taking photos of like skyscrapers, like massive landscapes and like, football stadiums guy. Why that? Like how, because part of me was wondering, because strategic ideation, one of the things that strategic makes decisions, ideation is creative thinking, merge them together, which Clifton Strengths themes often merge. I had someone say to me, how does those themes show up? And he said, I know the fastest way home at night from the office, but I hate driving home the same way every time. And so his ideation, he's like, my strategic ideation, it's not just about solving it the way home, solving it in a way I'm not bored ends up being key.
Yeah.
And I always wondered, I'm like, is strategic ideation the way you go from, I don't want to just take photos, I want to take photos from points of view that only a bird flying at the highest level is going to see? What is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think creatively, I was seeing members of my community taking pictures from this perspective. There was a company that had just started a few years after I started that offered these doors off helicopter photo flights. And they were using the influencer photographers in New York City to advertise for them. And then, inevitably you look into it and you're like, well, there's no way that like me and this like budding small business of doing family shoots and weddings for no money is going to ever be able to afford this. And it turns out I was gifted that opportunity from a member of the community that I had grown with, right? I think where it comes from is there's always been, so being someone who grew up on the East Coast, there isn't a lot of sky. There isn't a lot of line of sight. And to me, that was fascinating. And it made me, like, anytime we climbed a mountain or a hill and I could see 10 miles or 5 miles or 20 miles, oh, look, you can see New York City in the distance over there on top of a mountain, 40 miles away. I was enamored by that because we lived in this kind of like deciduous canopy where like there isn't a lot of huge vantage points. And I just was fascinated by being able to see all the things, like just take it in. And I would say like my first probably like 5 or 6 flights, I was just kind of like, I was taking everything and there was no curation. There was no thought. It was just, I got to get all of this because I don't know when the next time I'm going to be able to get back in a helicopter is. Right. And as I got more opportunities, I decided, okay, if I'm ahead of the curve here because I found myself in a position where I was getting calls from that company when they had free seats. Do you want to come and take pictures for us? Sure. Wasn't making any money, but I was getting the opportunity, right? And then I went and worked for them and ran their social media. And then from that point on, then the achiever aspect kicked in because I was like, if I come into this opportunity one step ahead of everybody else who wants to do this, I want to leave here 10 steps ahead. I want to start to find, like, I had a clear vision of things and a style from the ground level, but I wanted to translate that and bring that, show New York and the architectural details, and that I'm infinitely always torn. Do I show the details that the architectural details at the tops of buildings that no one else will ever see because it's 100 stories up and they're walking by the front door, right? Or do I show the unique geographical qualities of a city built on a series of islands, right? And like, how do I combine those two? And it's this kind of I always have 2 cameras. I always have 2 focal lengths, super wide, and then a telephoto zoom so that I can tell both sides of that story. Because
that's fascinating. Because that's literally strategic and futuristic. Futuristic is going, here's the big vision, and strategic, and strategic's like, and this is the nuance of that turn, so to speak, metaphorically.
Yeah. Wow. Yep. Yeah.
Wow. Was it always confident? I mean, you're in this space and you're starting to do this. Was everybody like, yep, good idea, Paul. You're going to be a photographer. Go do it. It's great. I mean, like, what does it take to navigate in because these kind of shifts, and it is evolving. I think anybody would say, yeah, you follow your passion versus freezing to death as a groundskeeper in the middle of winter. Those are different. But at the same time, you're also betting on yourself. You're not going out and getting a job necessarily for somebody else.
Right.
You've been hustling. You've been like freelancing on multiple things. The side hustle model, even back then with the lessons and other things. Did you have to overcome anything in your own head to believe that you could trust yourself that this could be a future?
I don't, like I said, there was that prayer for consideration. So when I felt like it was time to go, I was doing that confidently. Now,
Okay.
it doesn't mean that like once you decide to jump off the high dive, that when you
Right.
get on top of the high dive and you look down, there isn't that moment of like, everybody's
Yeah.
going to be so mad at me if I come back down this ladder, like, and not jump
Yeah.
off. So I think that there's always, look, there's a level of vulnerability that is there. It's present in me presenting something sometimes on a daily basis for people to hopefully be inspired by. But it's also, like you said, I'm betting on myself, and my wife is betting on me and wanting that for me. So in my mind, there's that like, I better make this work, because like she's taking on more than I feel comfortable. I'm also like leaving retirement plans and health insurance, and now we're small business owners in one house, right?
Right.
So there are decisions, and reality does come crashing in when that safety net is, you say, all right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. We're gonna do this.
And what anchors you? So what does that anchoring of like, because I mean, again, I've had my own business for 20 years, and I remember the times where like, man, it would be great to have somebody else pay for health insurance. I'm like, when I turned 45, I was like, I really should have somebody else. I have no 401k. And you're like, and there's an element of like, what at the time you're like, wow, what does that look like? And gosh, it sure would be nice just to know the next paycheck's coming from in 6 months when I signed the lease on this place. And you're like, I don't have clients beyond 6 months, but I just signed a 12-month lease. All those things for yourself, like, what carries you? You're a double small business family. What carries you through that?
I mean, faith is definitely a huge part of that. And I think communication. I think if you have two people that are pursuing something that they've inherited this talent somehow, right?
Yeah.
And they've cultivated it in a way that is hopefully something that's undeniable for other people to recognize. However that manifests financially, whatever it is, I think that if we didn't have a strong relationship to begin with, it never would have worked, because there's definitely moments where we're like, am I going to get another job? What am I going to do? Like, am I going to, so it's, what grounds me definitely is faith. It's definitely communication, and it's definitely, the fact that we both want each other to, I don't want to say like live your best life, because I don't like that, but like,
No.
but
I wanted to finish.
It's because I'm a Gen X guy. I don't like the live your best life type of guy.
Yeah,
like, but to live in a way that it is fulfilling.
Because that's my question. Because part of what comes up for me is I think about what would carry that through. With futuristic, one, I think people with futuristic need to be communicating their vision. Also, they have to be communicating their vision and people their relationship with, because you can't dream alone. If you are married, if you're a partner, if you have a business partner, or even a family, you don't dream in a bubble. You don't create vision in a bubble. But specifically, we like to say that everyone has a vision all the time, and either it's an overriding intentional vision, or it's a vision to look good, feel good, be right, or be in control. And so we need to have a vision that overcomes that self-protection we feel. A vision to not look good bad to other people, to be safe, to be in control of things, and which are basically fears. And so a vision that overrides that goes, actually, I have a vision for being, and even what you said though, because I want to tie it into this, like you are a successful photographer, successful being however people define that, in that you're a published photographer, you're an author, you've had viral moments on social media, you've had some of your stuff go viral, your side-by-side things that went viral. I mean, there's pieces in work where undeniably you are great at what you do, you have a talent, and it's being recognized. And I think people think that suddenly they'll somehow be like, oh yeah, I've arrived. But I think people have a vision with their futuristic of, you know what, I want to be somebody who lives like this, who's creating these things in the world, and a vision of who you want to be. I think that has to be overriding. Otherwise, this world's it's hard, it's out of my control, it's difficult, takes precedent. And so a vision of how do you center on, I've achieved things, but yet I still have a vision for who I want to be and who I want my wife and I to be. How do you what's it like to have to kind of dream past I'm a recognized photographer thing?
Yeah.
How do you dream beyond that?
That's really interesting. And I'll tell you, like, that aspect of what I do, like social media, Instagram, was really kind of like just a place where I could document my evolution as a creator, right? I was not necessarily interested in viral moments because I don't even think viral moments had been invented yet, right?
Yeah.
Right. And for me, I was always like, well, this is all great. Like, followers are fine. Like, being verified is fine, but like, unless it puts money in the bank, like, it's just a glorified ornament. And I don't like. My thing is, I'm always like, cool. How do I build on that? Right? I'm not like, this is it.
Yeah.
Peak of civilization.
Yeah.
100 million people liked my picture. Like, that doesn't do it for me. Sometimes to my detriment, like, for instance, like when I got the advanced copy of my book, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, sweet. I'm like, cool, it looks great. And like, Leonie says to me, like, dude, just like take a minute and enjoy it. Like, sit in it. Like, I'm going to leave the room. I don't want you to have to like say something about your experience right now, but she's like, I want you to be present here, because my mind is what's next? What am I doing to promote this, to make it successful? And I think even just in those like 3 short years, I hearken back to that moment where I have to shut off all of those things that make me unique, to be present in the moment and be like an actual human being, because my mind is very much so like, great, what's next?
Yeah, because I think what you're talking about is finding that way of going, how do I place ultimate value on becoming? I challenge people a lot of times to set vision for like push yourself, like set a vision for what you're capable of, to like plumb the depths of, hey, let me see what I'm capable of. Not because the results of what comes out of it are the key, but the becoming becomes the value. Is that you're like, I love the fact that I went from someone who didn't know how to make his little megapixel non-DSLR camera work to someone who's now being paid to publish a thing, and like letting that becoming be real. Because I think we work with a lot of Olympic athletes, and they talk about gold medal depression is real. The spending their lives training for events, and they get gold medals and then have to come home and say, now what? I think the word for it is arrival fallacy. It's the fallacy that when I arrive to a point, when I arrive to being an author, when I arrive to having a job, I will suddenly be different. I remember publishing my first book and realizing, oh, well, that's great, it's a book. Or my first 7-figure year, and like, oh, great, now how do I maintain that? And that vision, and so instead of having a vision for what I want to do and have, the vision of who I want to be and how that shows up, and be able to set that. And it's interesting how, as somebody who's been successful in those things, does it get easier or harder, do you think, after those successes to recraft a vision in a way that's healthy and maintainable?
Mm. Healthy and maintainable is probably the most important part of that question.
Yeah.
I think that there is a time when you have these moments where you say, how do I duplicate this? Right? And I don't know whether it's a moment, a feeling, an achievement, but there is definitely a time when there are these transformative or pivotal moments in our lives. And let's be honest, like uh our lives should always be in constant evolution, and it shouldn't be like I've arrived, because the only thing that's constant in life is change, right?
Right.
So if we're stuck in that moment, like, here's the thing that I got for that time that I did that thing, um and that's like, you may recognize me from such things as, like,
As seen on from
right,
the
like, and you're
well,
like, oh
videos, right?
no, dude, like, I'm like one of those guys from the 70s that's like now doing infomercials, like, I don't I want to be constantly pushing the envelope. I want to constantly be helping other people realize their vision, and I want to, I think for myself, I want to definitely learn more about being present in the moment and being more flexible, because my mind is strategic and ideation, and there's futuristic. So I'm daydreaming of, like, why don't people understand what I'm trying to do for them here? I'm trying to help them, like, sell more stuff by doing cool stuff from a helicopter. Um, but I think, yeah, there's a balance of being pleased with achievement, but also knowing that there's always someone out there working harder. They want
Right.
it,
And
you
I
know?
think and having the achievement that is simply the fruit of the life I'm living. That's the bigger
Mhm.
thing, right? Is finding a way to be able to kind of really go and say, you know what, this is the life, this is the results of a current life I'm living, more so than it is the point. It's not the whole point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. There is that, yeah, I like that. The fruits of the life that you're living, or the achievements.
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna actually close my door here. I got my weed whacking neighbor here. So hold on.
Yeah.
We'll cut the. Give me one
Yeah,
second.
sure, sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just in the last few minutes here, Paul. Even as I don't want to keep you all day, but as we think through some of these, we're in a fascinating time for photography,
Mhm.
right? As we enter an artificial world where no one can tell what's real anymore. I took a photographer friend of mine, Nick Fay, from Capture Studios. I took him to Honduras with me in February, and talking about the fact we have a foundation down there, and we're investing in some small businesses and some indigenous villages way remote, and and I remember seeing the things he captured and things he even captured of me in different parts. I'm going, yeah, you can create perfectly coiffed images of me and project me there if you want, but there's something about capturing that which is human. Even in my own
Mhm.
industry, there's great tools for electronic coaches and things like that. But we're really leaning in more and more to how do we put human beings together? How do we capture the thing that is human ultimately? You're in an industry where it's getting harder and harder to tell what's fake and not, where people think they can do it cheaper. It becomes about budgets.
Mhm.
There's scenes in Hollywood that are now more and more like this whole massive issues with regards to artificial intelligence and those spaces. What are you navigating and facing? And again, for yourself, you're navigating into a phase. I mean, it's an unknown world. What are you leaning into to navigate this season right now in your own industry?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's two sides of the coin, right? There's that, like, that, this is a threat, and then there's the other thought of this is a tool, right? So
Yeah.
in that kind of evolutionary mindset that I'm in, I'm thinking, how do I integrate some of these things into it? I'm not necessarily like, this is a terrible thing. These are all bad.
Right.
No one will ever, like, I think I remember a lot of uh, automation coming to like the automotive field when we were younger in
Yep.
the 80s, right?
Yep.
And there was this fear that everyone was going to lose their job. Now, yes, a lot of people lost their job, but there's still people working in
In
assembling
automotive. Yeah.
automobiles, right? Um, so I think that the visceral reaction that comes negatively from my community for these towards this new technology, this new thing that could be used as a tool, is because maybe they found their thing. Maybe they found their thing and they're not really willing to change. But what's going to happen is people are going to start to ask questions that they haven't investigated themselves. So there's it is more of a reaction of fear of change rather
Yeah.
than my livelihood is at stake. Because let's be honest, we're very far away still from
Yeah.
losing jobs. Um, the technology is still very young. The tech and the outputs, although they are getting better and better, exponentially quicker and quicker. Um, so much so that now, like, we have these labels made with AI that
Yeah.
we can choose to use. Um, I think definitely it's something to keep an eye on, but I don't necessarily feel it like that it's an existential threat to what I do. I use
What I love
programs
about
with.
what you're saying though is that it's is one, it's not dualistic. It's good or it's bad, right? People are like, well, it's either terrible or it's not. Actually, nothing is ever black and white, right? It's not that. It's not how.
Right.
But we as humans find safety in simple thinking. So dualism of one or the other,
Yep.
dualistically thinking, is natural for us. What I love about especially the learner ideation strategic part of your brain, is one of the things I like to talk about is when it comes to navigating. Some of us, like yourself, they understand that their hope is not in cataloging every threat, but in being resilient no matter what the threat that comes.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah.
cultivating a responsiveness, cultivating an ability to educate and learn and go, I don't need to have every answer about every challenge because cataloging every challenge isn't the question. The trick is, am I leaning into my talent and developing it to a point where I can be resilient in the face of anything that kind of comes at me? And that's a whole different approach.
Yeah, there is a need, especially if you're going to be operating in. I mean, it could be applied to anything in this world. Probably. I think it comes as an easier explainer by using it for what I do in a creative realm. Um,
Yeah.
I have to do all those strategic, those ideations, the achiever, the futuristic. I have to have that type of mentality to be able to do what I do, right? But I think that whatever that combination that I have, the thing that I understand most is that I have to be, no matter how much I plan, no matter how much. I mean, I just did a shoot and did a video on this, like a 4th of July flight that we planned down to the minute, and it almost fell apart before we even took off. And I just I had to adapt, and that's the last thing I say in the video is like, this is truly like a collaborative thing where if I don't understand how to adapt, how I'm explaining to someone who's
Mm-hmm.
controlling a vehicle in the sky to put me in position to get an image, if I don't know, if I say, oh, this worked with the other guy and he did it perfectly, but this guy isn't getting it, if I
Yeah.
can't pivot, then it will be a failed mission, right? So I have to
Yeah.
be adaptable. I have to be willing to change. I have to be fluid despite the planning, despite the ideas, despite me seeing the holes of where this thing can go. It may not have been 100% a perfect flight and shoot that I just did, but 85% of it
Yeah.
was spot on and I'm very happy with it. Do I wish it was more? I always wish it was more. I always wish it was more. That's the achiever, right? I always wish it
Yeah.
was more.
Yeah.
I
If I if
want to
I'm
be 95%, you know?
if I teleport you back 12, almost 13 years,
Yeah.
and I was like, you're going to get to give advice to yourself about making challenge and change and the road you're about to navigate on, sitting from where you are now, almost 13 years in, going back to 2012, 2013, when you're picking up that camera. What's that look like? What's the advice you give yourself? What's the thing that you say that you're like, listen, you don't know this yet, but I'm not going to give you the answers. But this is the idea I want you to hold on to because you're going to find this to be true 12 years from now.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. I always like to bring up this thought that I have because of past failures in certain different areas. And it's that mentality and phrase that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And so that has honestly been my mantra since I decided to start this business. Like, do it, 100%. And I think what I would tell myself 12 years ago is kind of like, remember in those moments when you feel like, don't get complacent, don't get comfortable, don't let those little moments of glitter and sparkle distract you from pursuing something deeper and larger than one moment. Like build legacy, not like legacy is built on those little moments, but doing it consistently. So I would probably say, like, be consistent.
But I love that. Again, people say hard work beats talent, but I'm like, no, no, no. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. That's a great anchor because I think talent comes so easy to us that we will run by moments of success to fix things we think are broken instead of doubling down on what's working.
Yep. Yep.
So that we won't actually, we'll know that we cannot prep for the talk because talks come easy instead of becoming exceptional at the talk.
Right.
We'll know, and so we'll lean into the opposite things. And a strengths-based approach is knowing what makes you feel strong and doubling down on being exceptional in that.
Yep.
So, man, because even as I think of just to kind of even recapping your story, because a lot of people would love to do what you're doing without photography, but navigating into something they're passionate about. And I think, one, finding something that you have talent in, which to me, the key as I'm listening to you talk it was something that brought me joy to the part that I was thinking about it when I wasn't doing it. Then you invested in it, knowledge, skill, and experience. Then built community. Like people around you that would embed that would help you say, yeah, you're not alone and you're not crazy, and reflect back to you things they saw. I think from there, it's beginning to allow yourself to dream about what it would look like and then not be threatened by what you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that communication of that with a partner that knew why it mattered to you, that set a vision of becoming people fully alive to the point where we're willing to spend our money and take less money and have the cost and expenses that being fully alive, but it's a trade-off, right? Everything, there is no dualistic of there's right and wrong. There's a trade-off of to do this means less than the 401k. That means buying health insurance off the network or whatever, however you get health insurance. And it's all these different things. But that vision of going, this is the trade-off because I want to live fully alive. This is what this looks like. And then saying to yourself, let the talent and hard work build in resilience versus obsessing about everything you don't know while still continuing to dream.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's that was a perfect wrap up. It honestly, it is one of those things where it's, living that life fulfilled where it's because there's going to be a trade-off no matter what. There's always going to be a trade-off, right? I'm going to go to try and live the life that I want to live and do the thing that I want to do. But without, like we took the blue pill and we got out of the matrix, but
Yeah.
like, there's the harsh reality that we're eating goop in a spaceship, in the
Yeah, I'm
future.
like, it's
You know?
ugly. I mean, yeah, I resonate with all of that. It's so true. I'm like there's a lot of days when it's not, but you can't go back. I mean, I
No.
think I'll wrap us with this. I remember I had somebody ask me one time, Mike, 'cause I did Everspace Camp a couple of years back, and I've gone up a couple of times to base camp in that area, and someone's saying, Mike, wasn't it so hard? Like, what's the key to resilience? Because the second time I went up, we did the 3 Passes trek, which is a 95-mile loop around base camp and around. So he's like, what's the key? How did you coach yourself in resilience? Did you ever want to give up? And I was like, of course, like constantly, like every day. And like, well, why didn't you? And I was like, because we were socked in and you couldn't get a helicopter in for 10 days. Like people are like, it was so resilient. I'm like, no, I wasn't resilient. I had no choice. Like that was the whole thing. Was that I looked back and I thought, you know what? There's been so many times, and I hear it in your own story where you're like, once you start to believe this, you get to a place where the key to resilience isn't because you're better than somebody else. It's that you can't imagine any other choice than the one in front of you to keep going. It's not because you're like, I'm so much better than you. I started a small business or wrote a book or did a thing. I just realized I couldn't live fully alive working for Hewlett Packard and working in an office. I couldn't work for somebody else. And even that story of going, I don't know how I could be me and not be this in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that because I'm always surprised when I talk to somebody and they have this goal and I find out like, oh, hey, how's it going with that thing? Maybe 6 months later. Oh yeah, no, I didn't do it. And I'm like, but you said that was what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Okay. I also think like a large key to success is longevity, and it always makes me think of like when being chased by a bear, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the slowest person. Like you just have to outlast people sometimes. And there has to be a level of commitment that borders on obstinance at some point where you're like, nope, I'm doing it.
Yep.
And,
and no other choice. And you're kind of all in. I mean, when I started the company 20 years ago, I'm 20 years this year. I was 10 years in. Everybody's like, you're doing so great. I was literally, I think at the time I figured out I was $200,000 in debt between student loans, credit cards, because I didn't know about charging. I didn't know anything about business when I started. And I'm charging this, but I'm still trying to live my life and everything. And I remember people being like, oh, you're doing so amazing. And they're like, you've gone for 20 years. I, at that point, had amassed so much debt trying to run the company that I remember going, if I took a corporate job, I'll never pay this off.
Yeah.
Like, and so like, you're so resilient. And I was like, I just knew, I'm like, you know what? If I keep working and building the company, I could have my effort equate to results more likely than if I worked corporate. And so that ability to do that ended up being a key. And so that idea of like, oh wait, no, you're so committed, there's no other way out.
Yep.
No other way out.
There is no plan B.
I appreciate you, Paul, taking the time for me today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I love having these talks and kind of just bouncing these ideas is encouraging to me as I hope it is to other people. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because we all want to do, because it's a journey of like stepping into something you believe in and be an artist, I think is passionate, and also like the amount of work it takes to keep believing. So if you guys are watching along as well, you'll know that we talk every week. Also, if you want to get started or even ask questions, we actually have 2 things. We have a thing called a navigation brief. If you're taking Clifton Strengths, you can drop me something you're navigating in your top 5, and we'll actually shoot a custom coaching video for you. But I just created a little thing I'm calling the a clarity compass, which is like 5 questions to figure out if like your life is on the wrong train. If you're going, wait a minute, I'm wondering if I'm going to get where I'm going. And it's just 5 simple questions. And it's a PDF. You can do it on your own. If you're interested in either one of those, there'll be links in the bio, links in the description down below here in the podcast. And if this is good for you, please like, share, help us to reach other folks. Every comment and every share and every like matters. So thanks so much. Thanks, Paul, for being here. Appreciate it.